Welcome to Poetry Flash in Berkeley. I'm Joyce Jenkins. Tonight, we are delighted to present a reading by Phyllis Stowell and Sandra M. Gilbert. Our readings are co-sponsored by Moe's Books in Berkeley. For Phyllis Stowell's new book, see kelsaybooks.com, K-E-L-S-A-Y. And for Sandra M. Gilbert's book, see bookshop.org/shop/poetryflash. The links are in the chat box. You should be muted on entry. Please keep yourself muted so we can all hear the poets. This event is being recorded and will be posted on the Poetry Flash YouTube channel and Facebook page. At the end, after the recording ends, we'll keep the Zoom on for a few minutes so those who are joining us live can say hello or ask a question. Remember to visit poetryflash.org to see reviews and news about upcoming events in California. To join our email list, go to poetryflash.org and you'll get notices about all of the wonderful readings we have coming up. Now, I'm really delighted to introduce our first poet. Sandra M. Gilbert's 10th book of poetry is Judgment Day. Marilyn Hacker said, Judgment Day, with formal virtuosity, explores food and its multiple cultural meanings, infuses a series of ekphrastic poems with history, often includes love lyric and elegy in one poem, gives us politically charged narratives of childhood and young womanhood in New York, and a wry and revolutionary look at an aging body still desiring, desired, and in motion. Sandra Gilbert is renowned for her collaborative critical work with Susan Gubar, including The Mad Woman in the Attic, The Woman Writer and the 19th Century Literary Imagination. Carolyn C. called it a masterpiece in the Los Angeles Times Book Review. Sandra Gilbert co-edited the Norton Anthology of Literature by Women and co-authored No Man's Land, The Place of the Woman Writer in the 20th Century, among many other titles. And she recently edited Essential Essays, Culture, Politics, and the Art of Poetry from the prose of poet Adrienne Rich. Sandra Gilbert's honors include the Northern California Book Awards Fred Cody Award and the National Book Critics Circle Lifetime Achievement Award. Tonight, Sandra will be sharing new work with us. Please welcome Sandra M. Gilbert.
Oh, hello. I'm trying to.
You
can
Yes.
hear me? Okay. I'm trying to do speaker view so I can see myself. Speaker. No, I'm trying to become the speaker, and I can't do speaker view for some reason. Speaker. Well, it's a real joy to be here. It's an honor. I'm so grateful to Joyce. I'm grateful to Joyce for so much, and I always have been. And I'm really delighted to be reading with Phyllis, who was an old and dear friend and a tried and true poet. So I'm going to read a lot of new work, and I mean, not a lot of new work, I promise you, some new work. And I think it's going to be maybe 7 poems or 8, depending on how long this takes. I want to begin with a poem from I don't want to use the word inspired, but a poem that is about the current horrible world situation, which has, as you'll see from this poem, certain kind of personal connotations for me, although that's hardly the most important aspect of it. But this is a poem about what is going on in Ukraine, and it's called Under the War Zone. Under the war zone, my Jewish Ukrainian grandma-in-law has settled up to my Russian Orthodox grandma, the Shabbos Goy. They're old and wise, about 130 years old, each of them, but have no idea how they came to this narrow trench in the ground, they who never met in life. But even so, they're whispering intense confidences. Grandma Sarah, my husband's grandma, tells Grandma Sasha, my grandma, that she was a revolutionary, that she was flung in jail in Kiev before we started to call it Kiev. And Grandma Sasha tells Sarah how she would light the great coal stove for the Jews next door when she lived in Rostov near Moscow, before her mother took her to Paris to live at the Cathedral Alexander Nevsky. And oh, they are distressed, though all their children are dead too, and though most of their grandchildren have disappeared also. Still, they have been told to war with each other, to shoot and blast each other way down there underground, and they are conspiring violently. Shall they arise and escape to Poland? They never liked Poland. Should they try to haunt a basilica somewhere, or a synagogue, or the memorial to Bobby Yar? Unsatisfactory. The guns roar overhead. They almost have to scream to hear each other, each one boasting about her offspring's high IQs, at the same time moaning about the yellow fields outside Kiev, outside the dungeon where Sarah once huddled, and about the icy winter nights when Sasha waited for Christmas to come all night long in the candlelit cathedral, clinging to her mother's waist. The rockets blast, the guns rat-a-tat. They are so close to each other, whispering that they could hold hands if they still had living hands. But now all they can do is mutter, Ospiti, oh Lord, Ospiti. The words my grandma Sasha said as she limped around the Queen's apartment in her old age. The words I just heard a young Ukrainian mother murmur to a cameraman on TV, Ospiti, oh Lord. I'm trying to get myself onto speaker view, Joyce. Maybe Rosalinda can make that possible.
Did you click on view on the upper hand?
Yes,
upper
I
right
did.
side? And and you've clicked speaker view and it's not working?
Yeah, right.
Huh.
I would feel a little more comfortable if I could just see myself better.
Yeah, I mean, I have us in speaker view as well. There's really nothing I can do on your side if it's not
Okay,
in the
something's
view.
wrong. Okay, never mind. It's not that important. I was just
Okay.
pleading for help. I'm going to read, the next poems I'm going to read are from a new series, which is going to be called, I think, Biopics. And these are poems essentially autobiographical about moments in time. They meant to capture specific moments as I look back through the years, trying to reimagine my own narrative, as it were. So, you know, it's not all true because poets never always tell the truth, but a lot of it is based on fact. The first poem is called Port Jefferson. And by the way, throughout there's a protagonist who is always referred to as she, and you can figure out who that is. Port Jefferson, black, hot roadway, melty and bumpy with pebbles. White sandals moving forward, small pink 2-year-old feet inside them. Dry things, grasses taller than she is, whispering nearby. She looks down, round pinkish arms, streaked with shiny golden fuzz. She stares, thinks, mine, they are me. Overhead, a great roof of blue with puffs of white gliding along. At the end of the road, approaching it now, a thumping and hissing. Part of the beach, though the beach is burning yellow sands too. But at the edge of the sands, what thumps and hisses is water, white and blue. When she is taken into it, it doesn't look blue, more green and gray. And it is cold, bitter, salty, full of scary churning that wants to knock her down. It is nothing like the motionless blue, so high, high up. She turns toward her nurse, holds out her arms, shouts over the whispering, hissing, thumping, "Look, mine, me." The next poem in this series is called Lake Placid, and it refers to the town in upstate New York in the Adirondacks, where when I was little, my family used to go on vacation. And this is basically a true story. Lake Placid. She's 5, a big girl. They're at the Mirror Lake Inn, where she eats with the grown-ups, mommy, grandma, auntie, and daddy and grandpa on the weekends. They go to the top of a big mountain where there's a lot of wind. It's called Whiteface, but it's really gray and green. Auntie takes a picture of her with grandma. She paddles with other children at a little beach on the lake. Then they go to the big lake, the real Lake Placid, and they ride in Uncle Henry's motorboat, fast and wild. The next day, mommy puts on her shahadi dress, the one they bought at the fancy shop in town. It has red suspenders, a blouse with embroidery, and a red skirt. She goes with mommy, auntie, and grandma to mass. The priest mumbles in Latin, and the altar boys follow him around. Then the priest gets up into a wooden pulpit and begins to speak English. She's mostly bored because he's just talking about how important it is to be good. She knows all about that. She's always being told that. But then he talks about separate goods and asks a question. Faith, hope, and charity, he says. And of these, the greatest is. He pauses. She knows he wants someone to answer. So from the back of the church, she shouts, "Charity." "Well," says the priest, "that is a smart little girl. Bring that little girl to the rectory right after Mass." Soon the bells that sound like telephones begin to ring, and people put their heads down and beat their breasts as usual, then line up to go to the altar and come back looking serious and important. And then the Mass is over, everybody crowding out of church, and mommy, auntie, and grandma surround her, walking to the rectory, where the nice priest gives her a hug, a missal, and an ice cream cone. "Well," says mommy, "it's a good thing you wore the shahadi dress." Next poem in this series, or at least the next one that I'm going to read, is about, the title refers to both summer camp and high school. All these poems have place names. Rena Dewan Camp, Hunter College High School. She's 13, going into her sophomore year. Why is she still at camp? Like a little kid. Everyone in the cabin is asleep. She takes her stuff and hikes up the little hill to the senior girls' John. Sits on the floor, tugs a Marlboro out of her pocket from the pack she bought on the trip to Maine, and the matchbook that says Ogunquit Motel, Marginal Way. Moths flap around the one big light that shines over all the knotty pine cubicles where the toilets are. A black fly buzzes around. Yuck. The row of white sinks.
It looks like your Wi-Fi name or password has changed. To update your Wi-Fi information, go to the Alexa app.
I'm going to read that last line again because Alexa seems to have wanted to interrupt me. Moths flap around the one big light that shines over all the knotty pine cubicles where the toilets are. A black fly buzzes around them. Yuck. The row of white sinks glisten in the dimness. Things are bad in the cabin. Red-haired Trixie just spent an hour throwing her knife at the moonlit wall. Someone will probably tell on her and she'll get expelled. And they starred in Little Women together. She takes a drag of her cigarette, coughs, opens her book. stately, plump buck mulligan, snot green sea. She's read the first page over and over again, puzzled by it. Her glamorous cousin Richard, aged 20, her first crush, introduced her to Joyce. They sat side by side in his little bedroom in Williamsburg, fondling his books. In the play, she was Laurie, Trixie was Joe. The smoke from her cig rises toward the light. The moths flap and the fly buzzes. In comes gray-haired Harry Harris, the music counselor. Oh, darling, she says. She's wearing a black and white wool bathrobe. Oh, darling, I'm sorry. She takes out her toothbrush, bends over the sink, glances sideways. It will get better. It will, she says. Trixie sleeps with a knife under her pillow. They're going to send her home, definitely. Stately, plump buck mulligan. She stares down at the page. Her eyes are blurry and itchy. She gets up, tosses the cig in a toilet, and smiles at Harry. Oh, I'm okay, Harry, she says. Out the door she goes, Ulysses cradled in her arms, cigs back in her pocket. It's her snot green, and down the narrow path to the sleeping cabin. The next poem in this series, actually, I realized that it comes a little earlier. I should have read this one before that one, but oh well. This is when she's still in elementary school. And her mother is a teacher in the school that she goes to. You need to know that. So this poem is called Jackson Heights, New York, Woodside, New York. Teacher's daughter, teacher's daughter. They're big boys, a lot older, maybe 8th graders. And they're brandishing what? Hockey sticks? The dusk is grim. The sky has snow in mind. The street already icy from yesterday's freeze. She runs up the hill from her ballet class, for the first time wishing she were back in that heated, mirrored room, clinging to the bar, clumsily doing changement, or just standing there stupidly in 5th position, trying to smile. She's not very coordinated, Mommy said to Miss Farah Lynn, the teacher from Russia. So I hope ballet will help her with that. Ah, but she is so sweet, said Miss Farah Lynn. Always smiling into back row when they dance. Teacher's daughter. The big boys are closer now. She's running faster, skidding, falling, now down on an ice patch, twisting, sliding. Ha 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 ha, teacher's daughter. They bellow as they gallop over and past her. Her right arm won't help her get up. She has to lean on the other arm. And when she drags herself into the elevator to the 4th floor, Mommy rushes her to the doctor downstairs, who puts the bad right arm in a sling and says it's broken. Tomorrow they have to go to Woodside, 2 miles away, to put it into a cast. But now it's begun to snow and snow and snow. This is a blizzard, Daddy says. Yet anyway, as soon as they wake up, Mommy helps put on her galoshes. And though the snow is getting high as hills, so Daddy says cars and buses can't go through it, they set out to walk the 2 miles to Woodside for the cast. And they walk through lanes and tunnels of snow. The snow is up to her waist and everything is slippery too. And she knows she's not very coordinated. Yet still they walk and walk through what looks like an endless, cold, white, fallen sky, as if she worries they're journeying through what the nuns in catechism class at St. Joan of Arc call eternity. Well, I think I'll read this next one. I think I have time for maybe 8. Cornell University, Clara Dixon Hall. She's moving on in life. Dearest Jay, dear Lou, dear Eric. 3 sheets of paper spread out in front of her. She chews on the end of her pen. I hope you're well, but I have to tell you, no, not right. here I am at Cornell. She gazes out the window at the trees on fire with late October. Death and transfiguration, she thinks, but no, too dopey. Back to Dearest Jay. I'm sorry that I have to tell you, our relationship is over. No, too fancy. Just have to tell you about a new development. That means I really can't see you anymore. You see, Dearest Jay, dear Lou, dear Eric, I've finally found true love. And so, what mush? She's almost 17, too old for sentimentality. But no, she has found true love. I'll be spending all my time with him, the one. His name is Rob. Rob, dark curly hair, high forehead, cleft chin, incredible muscles. Rob, horn-rimmed glasses, clear green searching eyes, sitting at the writer table, a senior signing up freshmen like her. And then they were at dinner, fancy Leonardo's overlooking the gorge, steak and wine and a flickering candle. And then together, forever together in the dusty boarding house room with its bunk bed. Rob's is the upper bunk, where they lay together like Adam and Eve and listen to Mozart's Voi che sapete, her assignment for Music 101, naked, eyes locked in the dim light. Voi che sapete, che cosa è amore? Oh, ladies, you who know of love, tell me, is this what's in my heart? I'm young. I've never felt this before. I hardly understand. I see I have 3 more poems, and I'm moving out of the series into an elegy and a love poem. No, I have only 2 more poems. So this is an elegy, which I think will explain itself. For Saini. When I'm through with all this caregiving, she said, I want to travel. She'd borrowed a book about Istanbul that a poet friend had lent me. It's gone. I think she took it. Of course, she had traveled. She got on a bus in Fiji, 17 years old, riding over the dark mountains to the other side of the island. Her seatmate, 5 years older, a sturdy knockabout seaman, minister, roustabout. Later, she married him. Joshua, tall, tattooed caregiver for my beloved's broken leg, handyman and dreamer, father of her 5 kids, squandering his American wages and hers on a fantasy mansion in faraway Fiji, while she dined à deux with the old Chinese lady in San Rafael, whom she dressed in the morning and undressed at night. And the cancer bloomed in Saini's lungs, though she only coughed politely now and then, until near the end, she wheezed and carried an inhaler because the clinic, they couldn't afford a doctor, had no health insurance, said she had asthma, until that last night when she knocked and knocked on the wall and told her son and her brother-in-law that she couldn't breathe, couldn't breathe. And the ER had to take her in and put her in the ICU, where she died in just a few hours. She was asleep. She was on a ventilator. The cancer was everywhere, said her brother-in-law. Then her pulse collapsed and she passed. Saini, the caregiving is over. They've made a Fijian funeral bed for you, regal, walled in with prints and calligraphy from the long ago Pacific, where you'll lie for a day in your coffin on the eBay. Beautiful Saini, surrounded by tapa, just before you start your long postponed journey to Paris, to Istanbul, back to Fiji, and on to Acrux, brightest star in the Southern Cross and beyond. Actually, I'm going to read 2 more poems, and one of them is going to be an old poem, but it fits with the poem I began with. This is the love poem, as you'll see, and it's dedicated to someone to whom I say, you know, this is for you. The poem is called Sticky Toffee Pudding. You don't eat fish or lamb, but you taught me sticky toffee pudding, darker and sweeter than Emily's black cake, so dense with the spirit of midnight that we almost have to sip its crumbs. It's stickier than sex syrup, that might even glue souls together if they stick with each other and nibble as they huddle in the kitchen. I was grieving in the kitchen when you brought me sticky toffee pudding, and we talked all night, seeking to analyze sweetness itself and its variations. Did you know that this fabled pudding oozes ground dates and demerara sugar? Someone invented it on a cold, bleak night in Canada, but really, it should have sprung from the mind of the desert, where wanderers dream of oases and palaces, just as widows do in the nights of emptiness, just as poets do in the suburbs of prose. I was grieving and eating salted meat, but you taught me the secret of toffee pudding. And the last poem, which is a poem I know I've read many times at Cody's, but it really fits with the first poem I read because it's about Grandma Sasha, who was talking underground with Grandma Sarah about the war in the Ukraine. And you know, there are a lot of people who have left Russia now, some of them going to Paris and some going to Armenia. This is about, and to so many other places, to Georgia, to America, to Canada, to the United States, to Mexico. This poem is called My Grandmother in Paris, about someone who left Paris, not because of a war, but out of a wish many years ago. My Grandmother in Paris. Paris, 1900. A sky of corrugated iron, snow and mud, beggars like heaps of debris on street corners, women with pink cheeks melting in doorways, splashes of laughter, church bells, creaking boots. Puccini's Paris, Paris of La Boheme, Paris of garrets and prisons, Paris of sweet fevers, Paris of phlegm and sweat, ivory breasts, skylights, opera. Paris of Wagner and Rilke, Paris of delicious 19th century melancholy, Paris where streetlights glisten through the winter twilight like pomegranates in hell. Twilight. My grandmother walks in the Bois de Boulogne under frosted chestnuts. She's 12 years old, a round-faced girl just come from Russia, her hair in skinny braids like strange embroidery around her head. She's on her way to the house of the Russian priest, where her mother cooks and cleans. But she watches, wondering, as carriages plunge through the slush of the Bois, their lamps leaping like goblin heads, their blanketed horses clopping docile as cows through all the Paris noise. Baudelaire is dead, Rimbaud dead in Africa, Gertrude Stein thinking in Baltimore, Picasso painting in Barcelona. My grandmother has learned 3 words of French. Allô, comment, combien. Amadei, the boy she's going to marry 4 years from now, is in Nice with his sister Eugénie, who will die next year at 19, and his sister Rosette, who will die at 40. My grandmother is still tired from last week. She stops to sit on a low wall beside the road and begins to shape a tiny angel out of crumbs of snow. From a passing fiacre, a young clerk off to the opera sees her round pink face suspended like a small balloon in the blue air. What is she thinking as she pats a cold celestial head and frozen wings? Is she remembering the awful train ride across Europe, the bonfires at the Polish border, the shouts as the engine chuffed into Berlin? No, she rises, makes her angel into a snowball and tosses at a tree. She's thinking of Russia, of her grandmother back in the room in Rostov by Moscow, of the ice like silver on the river all winter and long into spring, of the black fields outside town and the old stories of Baba Yaga, and the tales she has also heard of the red-haired Cossack said to be her own father. She walks faster. It's late and cold. Her mother will worry. The fat priest will be cross. Paris grows around her like an enigmatic alphabet. Even the trees are different here. No firs, no birches. As she walks, Baba Yaga's house on chicken legs steps delicately away across snowy meadows, and her father, the Cossack, with his furry animal head, fierce teeth, red beard, gallops into glacial distances. Does she suspect that from now on, she'll never really know any language again? Tomorrow, the priest will be 60. To celebrate, he'll buy a Swiss cane at the Galerie Lafayette. In 70 years, my grandmother will twirl that cane and dance a two-step among the eucalyptuses above San Francisco Bay, singing the song about the lost princess of the Volga, while far below, the cold Pacific glistens like an ice field. Thank you.
A round of jazz hands for Sandra Gilbert. That was wonderful, wonderful. Really wonderful. Thank you. So now we have our book launch. So Phyllis Stowell's moving and brand new book of poetry that we are launching here tonight is Threshold State. Alan Williamson said of it, "When I read Phyllis Stowell's poetry, I am first struck by the beauty of the sound play, a dimension undervalued by so many contemporary poets. Then by her unflinching confrontation with the theme that must come to the fore for all poets if they live long enough, the confrontation with the void. Like the great poets of old age, I think particularly of Stevens, Stowell records both the horror and the glimpses of a possible transcendence. Phyllis Stowell's previous books include Einstein's Knot, poems, and Transformations Nearing the End of Life, Dreams and Visions. She co-edited Appetite, Food as Metaphor, an anthology of women's poetry. Her poems have appeared in Poetry East, American Poetry Review, the Virginia Quarterly, Wallace Stevens Review, there he is again, Columbia, Phoebe, 13th Moon, Volt, and the Jung Journal. She is the recently retired chair of the Friends of the C.G. Jung Institute of San Francisco. And we are so delighted, Phyllis, to help you launch this, this very moving new book. Phyllis Stowell.
I guess I can talk now.
Yes, please.
I'm not seeing anybody. I see you. So is that okay? All right. You can see me. All right. I am going to read from each part of this book. It's into different sections. And the first one is a section called, the book, it's a quote from Petrarch. "The day draws near, it cannot be far off. Time runs and flies so far." The first section is called Radical Absorption. And there's a quote from William James. "It may be a mere vague enthusiasm, half spiritual, half vital, a courage, and a feeling that great and wondrous things are in the air." Reckoning. Your mind teems with reincarnations. What happened happens again and again. Past is never past. Why then is old age a cage? You like a panther pace? Don't you comprehend yet? Each act, once done, can never change. Your longing is ashes. I'll tell you what old age is. When sun breaks through morning fog, your sight is blinded, while a one-night note coloratura repeats and repeats in your ear. Old means limitations galore, while a one-note old means limitations galore. Daily you knock against a new one you never imagined. As when you pick up a box of waste paint, that fire hazard would spin your spine out of orbit. You never imagined that your cat, a mewing infant still, would grow too heavy to lift or carry. You never imagined that your writing hand would cramp with the claw disease. That nightly your legs would wake up, nervy lullaby in a logjam of ice. Old age, really old. Others admire you for moving. Ask what brands you brought to buy them when you aren't. Old offers time alone when it's divine to be alone. There's no bitterness at being unknown. Oh yes, being known and dismissed, that's poison, cannot kill. Blissfully painting with pungent oils by mother's hearth, accompanied by Mahler. Not even imagine others coincident in your dimension. Writing these words, do you really have others in mind? Admit it. Talking to yourself is a widow's way, or say pleasure. At 88, but I'm 90 now, so at 88, it has become familiar. You feel it through the mattress, a tremor, and the way it lurches toward you in a fall. Do you fear the death demon who relishes the taste of living skin? One Nordic tribe's sacred rite preemptively cut their old ones up. Abiding beneath a cool celadon sun, another had no fear, none. For at the great bar piled high with edibles, the drunk dead feast. He has Mephistophelian skills. Don't think for a minute he isn't real. Consider the evidence. Walking, you catch yourself talking to the absent. Passing by, he smirks. Wherever there's a pause, he interrupts. Signature. This is the second part. And the quote is from the Tao Te Ching. A piece of wood, uncarved, natural, cannot be used by anyone. The leaders who can be genuine and natural as this gain the respect of the people. One poem in this is called Orator, and the quote is from Moby Dick. A Starbuck is saying, he drilled deep down and blasted all my reason out of me. Will I, nil I, the ineffable thing has tied me to him, tows me with a cable I have no knife to cut. In the beginning, he speaks only to you. For you only can hear, not question. By tone and cadence, by melodrama of the spoken word, even a prudent man might cheer for him, who gives his approval, the seed that gratifies, parent to our child. By stages, he persuades until his face a grimace of manic intent. And what tune is it ye pull to, men? In unison, all come together, infused hate. He can spell, he can quell, suppress, dispel our effort to manage malice, betrayal, 1,000 wrongs. All he needs to say is, this is good, that's bad. It's hard to put me on trial for what I did. It hurts me. I plead with you. My hurt is your hurt. And all good fellows in unison shout, a dead whale or a stove boat. A demagogue is master of the masses. And the masses, who are they? Even a moral man assailed by splenetic speech, beset by doubt, can into delusion from confusion to confusion fall. Hymn. This quote is from Li Changyin, a scholar of the Jade Stream. What if the sovereign himself is the villainous destroyer of the realm? Oh, America, God send his grace, greatly needed grace. Save us from this specter, this mind-maimed captain of our careening ship, whose lunacy squalls from sea to darkening sea, his wrath and infant impotency disguised as braggadocio, who knows full well it's all an act, smug because he has dissembled. This is his pride, his talent, his reality. He is deceived, possessed by powers beyond his powers, like Ahab. Underneath Ahab, deep in the unconscious seas, an unseen God grips and swirls him, dragging him down. In delusion, he tweets he would attack the sun if the sun offended him. And so many have offended him. Cheering crowds, masked gunmen, renegades, righteous true believers, genuine heroes and jolly simple folks, all benighted. How is it we respond, embracing or appalled, ourselves possessed, until his hate becomes ours? His crew sycophants, a few afraid of loss, cling to gunwales. The best flounder like fish upon the dock, the rest bent on profitable cruises, paid for by the public mint, all discount this sinking ship. I was in a down mood when I wrote those. The next section is called The Light in the Eye. Will it not call for the whole duration of the centuries before our sight is attuned to the light? Pierre Teilhard du Chardin. And this poem is called Havoc. What havoc? Even the winds and seas are in revolt in this best of all possible worlds, where peace is only possible in intimacy. Cultivate your own garden, accept what is. In quietude, wait until the scorpions, smug in their power, prompted by dismal realities, self-destruct. Even goldfinches war beak to beak in flight, despite June's bright dalliance among needles of the northern pine. Plenteousness, shelled sunflower seed, a flutter away from a cracked ceramic fountain with its pretense of permanence. How brief their overcrowding, a single female, a nibble or two. Another hovers wildly flapping. No tomorrow, no tomorrow. Safe here after their flight, eerie New York, downtown, no one. Stores boarded up, graffiti. At the park, ambulance waiting, white sheets. Nightmares at sea in a small boat, an arcing, enormous wave. The next part also has a quote from du Chardin. Man found himself placed on a principal axis of the universe. This poem is called Virtue. I listed all the virtues. It said, not these. Sent the house with slatted shutters in a scorching valley, slits of light, reflecting in its interior pool. Sent a second house, shadows, cutout shape of pomegranate cast upon a white wall, sound of water endlessly falling. A salubrious garden, hanging globes of fruit. I am here, residing, the way sunlight resides in air. This poem, not surprisingly, eventually, is called Death. And the quote is from Cicero. To an old man, what is more natural than to die? Individuals die, species die. The fleeting made eternal through incessant change, yet how unnatural it seems that eels and I will cease to be. Senescence, elongated a little, age to age, mental powers the last to decline. No excuse to be a bore. Plant an English garden, memorize French, Baudelaire, la mort des pauvres, c'est la clarté vibrant à notre horizon noir. C'est l'auberge fameuse inscrite sur le livre où l'on peut manger et dormir et s'asseoir. Recall yesterday's dream, a feast hosted by childhood's long gone sons, a hand-embroidered cloth on which thrice I spilled blood-red wine. Am I too blithe, too careless, with magnet-footed, crazy-paced time? Not my expectation, a poor soul's adieu, death is consolation. At the end of the voyage, his brain on fire, he vows to plunge into the abyss. Au fond de l'inconnu, pour trouver de nouveau. The body's longing for release melds with its fierce grip to stay. I'll be wrenched from all I love, but welcome death's alchemy. Whether led to some high-spirited unknown or dissolved, perhaps reconfigured in another time, another place. East wind. This is another quote from Li Changyan. Even the east wind cannot bear it any longer. It turns into a secret light. Dawn, already sad, I cast my net into the sea as if coral might cling and grow. What vision, what beauty could I leave the world? How lazy I have been, doomed by my own nature, a cinched belt with no feeling. A secret light. It listens, as it listened to a praying child, solely for one who is sad for a moment. An egg-shaped pearly moonstone emanating its own light. There in your hand, then it passes. And when it enters the western sea, so Earth can renew herself, and the few will be maybe simpler, maybe wise. The harms we have done will be like scars on rhyolite. Moss will cling to what remains. Against entropy. You don't talk to the dead. You talk at them, setting the story aright. A canoe overturned in rapids, belonging sodden, tied down by intention to survive. Words float to the surface. Old, 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 old. Oh, you have come full circle, the beginning of the end, that is erasure. A pressure to speak, not chatter, not defeated, all your mistakes stacked up against you. In the no place of your somewhere else mind, you don't join the swimmers, don't join old folks for a communal meal. When the only person who calls speaks a foreign tongue, when free association obscures your dream, a queen who could no longer be herself being crowned, do you feel shame? Thriving alongside humanity's crimes against life, the shame of a good enough fortune, life, human life, for Hawking, an equivalent in all the universe, unlikely. Feel it, that pressure to evolve, to become a paradigm of compassion, to grow in spiritual insight, to find eternal life, a light within. The last section of this book is called Little Season. An angel came down the key of the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. After 1,000 years, he must be loosed. That's from the book of Revelations. Often in the obscure being dwells a hidden God, Nerval. What dwells within? A handmade ceramic fountain planted with desert flora, each in its tiny, eloquent identity. Succulent greens, blush oranges, hints of omniprint yellow. At its height, a multi-fingered upthrust, glorying in no more, no lesser life. Comfort me. After a night by dismal thought besieged, and morning pain, a boulder blocking the rushing deathward flow. Just be. What dwells within whispered me, pool here in my depths. At the Verge. I want to say one little thing about this. It's about my having a stroke. And there's a clue to it that I had throat surgery. I was down in Carmel. I drove up to the Kaiser and I was in the emergency room when I dealing with what was supposed to be, what was pneumonia, when I had a stroke. So I'm giving you just a little background so you can follow it a little better. At the Verge. There is a verge of the mind which these things haunt. That's from William James. And then a longer quote from C.G. Jung. The meaningful coincidence or equivalence of a psychic and a physical state that have no causal relationship is a modality without a cause, an acausal orderliness. Had she not cut my throat, had I not caught a cold, had I not been hours away, had there been no other delay. Together, mother and son walk the path above Carmel's shore, in the calm of a sea that has no shore. That night, my chronic cough caused an impatient scalpel severing of the throat sphincter muscle, became night-long cough linked to cough. Given the warning, I was at high risk of pneumonia. At dawn, suppressing dread I drove north past sequestered towns, the land itself gone still. At 9, the tirage room looked empty. An aide laid me down in a bed. As predicted, my lungs were infected. Expecting to be released on the cell to my daughter, the cars parked on the 5th floor. On the 5th floor, the curtain opened, closed, opened to crazed comings and goings. Frustrated, my wing arm waving, close, flinging myself forward, slurring privacy. A male voice, you are having a stroke. too. A happy Santa wheels me into his angelic white van with his handsome dark-eyed ingenue. We laugh and joke, his siren singing as he whisks us over the bridge, an elevator up to the 5th floor, a monstrous machine, huge as the room. Under its brow, a nurse bends over, punctures my groin, torments a vein snaking up into my brain. Silence, more silence, nothing moves. Bass voice, I am going to abort. The massive blood clot has dissolved. 3. My veins cut, taped, bleeding, antibiotic acid burning up my aged thin skin. Exhausted, I fell down and down into a pit of deep sleep. Waked up, waked up, waked up. What rest? My wrist bled into the flimsy gown, blood damp, cold. Legs and arms wrapped in ice melt. Cold, why so cold? So alone. Down on your knees, winter's cold floor, a prayer, spoken aloud in the gown of night. To no one. This must wait. What dying is, lie still, wait for no one. And fire came down out of the heavens, I was held down, pythons tightened around my limbs. Then, for no reason, released into darkness. Gloved fingers forced my wide open my eyelids. Light pierced my right eye. Light pierced my left eye. Your name, your birth date. Where are you? Why are you here? The devils came every 2 hours, nights and days and nights. Obviously, I lived through it. The last poem in the book is called The Expectation. No, I was wrong. There is a beginning and there is an end. Ask your dead parents. Your carry-all is gone. Your black cat has a fatal condition. Your best friend isn't anymore. What is expected of when day is fox white? Absolute quiet on this side of glass? Late spring cold, ground no pickaxe can penetrate. Each mistake left its scar. Nothing is expected of you. Nothing is. No, that is wrong. Now is all that is. The oracle, Oriole, and the mourning doves have returned. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Phyllis. Thank you. It was such an honor and a deeply moving pleasure to be able to help you launch this book, this important book for you and for all of us, Threshold State. And thanks also to Sandra M. Gilbert. Thank you for that wonderful, wonderful reading. And it was so amazing to hear your new work. It was just deeply moving. And thanks to Rosalinda Monroy for our tech support tonight. Please keep looking at poetryflash.org. And if you want to get these wonderful books, this new book of Phyllis Stowell's Threshold State, go to Kelsay Books, KELSAY, kelsaybooks.com/products/threshold-state. And the link is in the chat box, and you can save the chat box and check it out later. And then for Sandra M. Gilbert's book, see bookshop.org/shop/poetryflash. So thank you. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We're going to end the recording now. Thank you.